You walk into a room. You haven't said a word. Haven't introduced yourself. Haven't shared a single opinion. But something has already happened. People have already formed an opinion about you. Not consciously, no one is taking notes, no one realizes they're judging you. But the brain doesn't wait for full information. It decides first, and only afterward starts collecting evidence to justify that decision. Most people repeat the same mistake their entire life. They think they're judged by what they say. In reality, most of the judgment happens earlier than that. In your tone, your eye contact, your posture, your reactions, especially in how you behave under pressure. Today, 3 signals. All invisible. All unintentional. All shaping how people classify you before you've said anything that matters. The first appears under pressure. The second looks like kindness, but isn't always read that way. The third is the most dangerous, because people don't see it as weakness. They see it as permission. We'll get there. But first, the one where most people lose control without even noticing. This isn't going to motivate you. It's not going to boost your confidence. And it's not going to tell you that you're enough. Because that's not how the social world works. People don't see what you feel inside. They see what you project outside. And that's where the problem starts. Because most people assume intention and projection are the same thing. They're not. You might be trying to stay calm. Others read uncertainty. You might be thinking before you speak. Others read hesitation. You might be trying to be understanding. Others read a lack of boundaries. People don't see who you are. They interpret what you broadcast. And sometimes the repeating problems in your life. Getting interrupted constantly. Being overlooked. Watching less capable people move ahead of you. Come from exactly that. So the real question becomes uncomfortable. What are you broadcasting without realizing it? Signal 1. Picture a meeting. 10 people. Normal conversation. Nothing tense. Then your manager turns to you out of nowhere. Why did the numbers drop this quarter? You know the answer. You prepared the report. Studied the data. This isn't about knowledge. But still. You pause. Half a second. Maybe 2. You're choosing your words. Structuring the answer. And in that moment, something invisible happens. No one sees you thinking. They only see the pause. And the brain hates gaps. So it fills them. Not with facts. With interpretation. Unprepared. Not confident. Didn't expect this. None of it might be true. It doesn't matter anymore. Because social perception doesn't move at the speed of truth. It moves faster. This isn't limited to meetings. It happens in interviews. First dates. Sales calls. Casual group conversations. Anywhere someone asks something unexpected and you pause before answering. People look like they're waiting for your answer. What they're actually measuring is your reaction. Pressure moments work like character tests. When everything is smooth, everyone looks composed. Real evaluation starts the moment stability breaks. That's why some people sound average but still feel powerful. And others sound correct but feel weak. The difference is rarely information. It's reaction speed. Think of someone you've always respected. A leader, a teacher, someone people naturally listen to. It's probably not their intelligence you remember first. It's how they behaved under pressure. Calm. Unshaken. Because the brain reads consistency under pressure as strength. And here's what most people miss. Sometimes people don't remember what you said. They remember how long it took you to say it. Hesitation doesn't stay in your mind. It stays in theirs. You'd think that's the biggest problem. It isn't. Because at least this signal is visible. People notice it, even if you don't. The next one is quieter. More dangerous. Because people don't read it as a flaw. They read it as a virtue. Which is exactly why it spreads without resistance. Signal 2. Picture a cafe. The person across from you is talking. And you're really listening. No phone. No interrupting. Steady eye contact. Nodding. Visibly engaged. From the outside, this looks like a good thing. We've been taught for years. Good people listen. Good people pay attention. Good people give space to others. None of that is wrong. But there's something most people never notice about the social world. A behavior being morally right doesn't guarantee it's read the same way socially. People can't see why you're doing something. They only see what you're doing. And the same behavior can send two completely different messages. When you listen carefully, you might think it signals confidence. Someone else might read it as, "This person is fully available to me." Two different interpretations. Two different outcomes. Now picture a group. 4 or 5 people talking. Someone starts a story. And you turn toward them fully. You ask questions. You engage. You validate. A few minutes later, when you speak, that same person checks their phone. Changes the subject. Interrupts you. It feels familiar. Because most people have lived this more than once. So the real question: why do some people constantly receive attention, while others constantly give it? It's not personality. It's signals. Attention isn't just a behavior. It's a resource. And like any resource, the way it's distributed determines its value. Look at the people everyone listens to. The people noticed the second they walk into a room. Usually, they're not the ones giving the most attention. Often it's the opposite. They don't hand it out unconsciously. Others have to earn it. The brain has a strange rule for valuing things. What's easily accessible loses value. What's harder to access gains it. True for money. True for time. True for energy. True for attention. So a pattern emerges. Someone gives attention constantly. Expects nothing back. Is always available. Always responsive. At first they think this makes them more valuable. Over time, the opposite happens. People get used to it. And what you get used to becomes invisible. You don't notice a clock ticking in your room because it's always there. The moment it stops, you notice instantly. Attention works the same way. What's constantly given disappears from awareness. That's why some people give so much and receive so little. Not because they're too good, but because of what they're broadcasting without saying a word. Access to me is easy. My time doesn't need to be earned. The brain records that. Not consciously. Automatically. To be clear, this isn't about becoming cold or distant. The real question is sharper. Is your attention a reflex or a choice? Signal 3. If signal 1 made you look uncertain, and signal 2 made you look low priority, this one is different. People stop seeing you as weak. They start seeing you as usable. Picture meeting a friend. Time and place are set. You show up on time. You wait. 5 minutes. 10. 20. A text arrives. Running a bit late. You say it's fine. Everyone's late sometimes. Then it happens again. Next month, again. Most people ask the wrong question here. Why doesn't this person respect me? The real question is, what allowed this to keep happening? Because behavior that gets no consequence gets stronger. Not just with lateness. With everything. Someone interrupts you. You keep talking. Someone crosses a line. You stay quiet. Someone hands you work that isn't yours. You take it anyway. Over time, people stop asking. They start expecting. The first time is a request. The second time is an expectation. By the third, it's simply the new normal. And almost no one notices the shift happening. Because it never happens all at once. A boundary doesn't break in a single moment. It erodes in millimeters. Picture the end of a workday. Someone asks, "Can you just handle this one thing? Not your job. You're tired. You don't want the conflict. So you say yes." Days later, it happens again. Bigger this time. You say yes again. Eventually no one frames it as a request anymore. They expect it. And somewhere in there, you ask yourself how you ended up here. You didn't get there suddenly. You got there step by step. Because people don't behave according to the boundaries you state. They behave according to the consequences those boundaries actually carry. No cost, no change. Here's the uncomfortable part. Most people aren't taken advantage of because they failed to set boundaries. They're taken advantage of because they set boundaries and never enforce them. They announce limits and never apply them. And the brain follows consequences, not statements. Think about who you genuinely consider strong. Not the loudest. Not the most aggressive. Almost always, something quieter. Their boundaries are clear. And more importantly, their boundaries have consequences. That's why people hesitate before testing them. They already know what happens next. Real boundaries aren't loud. They're calm. They simply exist. Strength is rarely volume. It's consistency. Bringing it together. Go back to the start. Hesitating under pressure. Giving attention without control. Letting boundaries erode without enforcing them. At first they look like three separate issues. They aren't. They share one root. Signals sent without you ever choosing them. People aren't reading you from where you think they are. They don't track your intentions. They track patterns. How you behave under pressure. How you spend your attention. What happens when your limits get tested. And the answers never come from what you say. They come from what you repeat. That's why the same dynamics keep finding you. The same kind of people. The same frustrations. And it's tempting to blame luck. Or bad timing. Or the wrong people. But one thing stays constant through all of it. The broadcast. People don't see you the way you want to be seen. They see what you consistently project. It feels like fate. It isn't. It's a pattern. And patterns can change. But only after they're seen. This is usually where people stop. They nod. They think they understand. And then nothing changes. Because awareness by itself doesn't create change. It only creates a mirror. Real change happens at the smallest level of behavior. In a 1-second pause. In a single moment of saying no. In where your attention goes. In a boundary actually enforced. Small moments, repeated. Until people start reading you differently. This isn't about how to do that yet. This is only the diagnosis. Because people aren't trying to figure out who you are. They're trying to classify you. And that classification starts before you ever open your mouth. So there's only one question worth carrying with you. What are you broadcasting without realizing it? Most people spend their entire life trying to change the outcome. Without ever touching the signal that's been creating it all along. That's the diagnosis. Not the fix. Because once you see the broadcast, the question stops being, how do I fix it? It becomes, what happens when someone else notices it first? And decides to use it? That's file 002. The reaction trap.